The recent Pokemon leak that's been going on has revealed a ton of cut content and pre-release info for various Pokemon games, and one of the games we've got to learn a lot about in particular are the Gen 3 titles, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Thanks to this leak, we have learned some wild stuff about the Hoenn games, like, for instance, that Gen 3 was originally planned to feature Pokemon Fusion. As a part of the recent leak, a pitch document for Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire was found amongst the various files, and it has been translated with the help of Lutu and Earthul over on Twitter. So shout out to them, and I will provide a link to their accounts within the credits link in the description. The document was written by Junichi Masuda, who would go on to direct Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire as well, and provides an initial outline for what was planned for the games. Various subjects such as themes, setting, and even Pokemon are mentioned, and this also includes some ideas for some new evolution methods, where it lists in-battle Pokemon fusions as a bullet point. Now, this is just a pitch document, so there are no visuals to show here or anything like that, but the list does go on to also suggest a possible fusion or evolution mechanic that could last for a certain amount of turns in a battle with the use of an item. Despite how early in Pokemon's history this stuff is coming from, it's definitely very evocative of something like Mega Evolution or the other modern features that we have seen in recent games that involve an in-battle transformation with oftentimes the use of an item, like it is being described here. And this also makes it really fitting that Hoenn later on in Generation 6 featured Mega Evolutions in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, almost as if it was finally getting the chance to realize this initial idea from the pitch stage of the original games. There is also another interesting thing about evolution here as well though, where it proposes the idea of a horde evolution that would hypothetically occur by catching multiple of the same Pokemon. I feel like there are some things that are somewhat similar to this in current games, but unless I'm totally blanking here, there isn't really a Pokemon with this exact evolution method in the core main series games, and it honestly sounds like a pretty cool idea that would actually make it worth it to catch multiples of the same Pokemon. This document also brought up one other extremely fascinating detail that I want to talk about, and that is an alternate timeline placement for the Gen 3 games. In this pitch, it states that these games were planned to take place 7 years before Pokemon Red and Green, which is a massive difference from the final games where they take place at the same time as Gen 1 instead. This clearly would have affected the game's plot and overall vibe quite drastically, as Gen 1 is kinda like the foundational starting point for the Pokemon timeline as it stands today, so getting a game that would have been several years before that would have been pretty interesting. And you know what? I kinda feel like Narwade has got some Hoenn vibes. He's just so happy and bright. These amazing plushes of my Pokemon Narwade are officially in stock and are shipping immediately, and the people that pre-ordered are already loving him. He's super soft, super well made, goes great with any plush or gaming collection, and every order helps the channel to keep making awesome content for you guys, and to keep making that content better and better, so it's genuinely a win-win all the way around. You can pick up a Narwade with the link in the description, and like I said, they are currently in stock and shipping right away. So in just a matter of days, you can be like these lovely people and join in on the Narwade goodness. So be sure to give that a look with the link in the description, and thanks so much for watching the video. Beta Pokemon are always going to be the favorite topic of discussion when it comes to cut content though, so let's go ahead and turn our attention to them. I have covered some of these already in my previous videos on the recent leaks, so I'm not going to touch on literally everything here, but there are some pretty interesting beta designs that have been revealed in this leak that I still want to touch on here really quick, such as Beta Shiftry, Beta Ludicolo, Beta Metatite, and Metacham, which look really interesting, and even Milotic, who had a bit more of a draconic look at this stage, which genuinely looks really cool. There's also some interesting factoids that have come out of these beta designs too, that make them interesting aside from just being interesting because they're beta designs. For example, the colors of Seedot's beta design actually resemble its shiny colors in its final design, meaning that this is probably where those shiny colors come from. Meanwhile, looking at Sablei's beta design, it's pretty clear to see that its Mega Evolution actually incorporated the look of its beta design, in particular with how it is seen looking through a giant gemstone. Now, this next one is probably just a coincidence if anything, but it's pretty strange, so I wanted to point it out. In this early design for Huntail, its coloration and body pattern look practically identical to Liepard from Generation 5. These Pokemon have no relation to each other whatsoever, so again, it's probably just a coincidence, but it's still pretty crazy how closely these two resemble each other, and I guess stranger things have happened, so maybe somewhere deep down, these guys have some kind of a connection to one another. On that note though, an interesting quirk that you could have noticed about a Pokemon about 20 plus years ago is that Manectric has a yellow lower jaw in its Gen 3 back sprite that it does not actually have in its official design. However, this leak has revealed to us the source of that quote-unquote error, as this early design shows that Manectric originally did have a yellow lower jaw, which would explain its back sprite in Generation 3 as sort of a leftover or oversight of its beta design. Lastly, one of the most interesting bits of trivia from these early designs are the likely origins of Zangoose and Seviper. These Pokemon's beginnings as rivals to one another seems like it probably began with these two designs, as various elements tied them together in much the same way, such as being right next to each other in the Pokedex, or at least within the data of this beta information, this Pokemon actually bearing somewhat of a resemblance to Zangoose, particularly with its color scheme, and the color schemes of these two Pokemon being direct opposites of one another, with the white contrasting the gray and the pink contrasting the green. So that's pretty cool all on its own, but what makes it even crazier is that this Pokemon, who is known as Pautsu, was actually the evolution of Spinda at one point. So in short, the origins of the Zangoose-Seviper rivalry likely started off with a Pokemon who was at one point Spinda's evolution, which is super crazy and also super random, which just makes it extremely fascinating. Of course, however, we also got the chance to see completely cut Pokemon as a part of this leak as well, that didn't make the game in any form. And while they are all interesting in their own right, and I will be showcasing a few of them on screen right now, there's one in particular I want to talk about that we don't actually have any kind of visuals for. Another document that has apparently been leaked from this leak is another one from Junichi Masuda that catalogs various ideas that he has had for new Pokemon. This document has been translated by Keizinsi Broiler and documented by High Res Pokemon over on Twitter, so a big thanks to them, and I will also have their accounts linked in the credits link in the description as well. This document describes a number of different Pokemon ideas, including one that would later become Relicanth, so they do actually have some kind of substance and meaning to them, but there is also another one on this list that is especially interesting as well, and that is because it is apparently known as the Sign Language Pokemon. The document says that it is always trying to say things with its hands and mouth, a gentle and quiet Pokemon that never cries. A Pokemon based on sign language is an extremely unique and interesting concept, and given its description and its concept, it's possible that this Pokemon was actually meant to stand out in-game as a Pokemon that didn't have an in-game cry, which again not only makes sense because of the whole sign language motif, but also is just a really interesting and creative way of making a Pokemon stand out. And it would have been really interesting to have been able to see this idea come together in some kind of visual form, or even just straight up be included in the final games altogether. This is just some of what the cut content of Ruby and Sapphire has to offer though. If you would like to see more, you can check out my other recent videos on the beta leaks, and you can also check out the people that I've mentioned throughout the video and who are also linked in the description, as they are documenting the leaks as well and are doing a great job of doing so. Also be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And with that said, thanks so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.